When a new pope takes his place on the chair of St. Peter, most people expect changes in policy or vision. But what actually shifts first isn't the architecture, nor the liturgical language, it's the people around him. The team. The voices that help shape the next chapter of the Church from behind closed doors. Under Pope Leo XIV, the Vatican isn't just a centuries-old symbol, it becomes a living, breathing center of leadership, guided by individuals the public rarely sees, but whose influence touches nearly every decision. These are the key players, the minds and hearts who help carry out the Pope's mission, shaping not only the present, but the future of the Catholic Church. Among them is Cardinal Proin, a man often called the quiet strategist. He doesn't stand in front of microphones or wave to crowds, but his presence is deeply felt inside Vatican walls. As Secretary of State, Proin is sometimes referred to as the Shadow Pope, not because he seeks power, but because he's been trusted with it for years. His knowledge of diplomacy is unmatched. He knows the global landscape of Catholicism better than anyone else alive. He's navigated the complexities of Chinese bishops, Russian relations, and tense conversations with leaders whose nations hang in the balance of church influence. For over a decade, Proin has been the calm center of Vatican diplomacy. And under Pope Leo XIV, he remains one of the Pope's closest advisors. He brings a sense of stability when the world outside feels uncertain. Whether he's handling delicate negotiations with the United Nations or maintaining quiet communication with repressive regimes, he's the one behind the scenes making sure nothing falls through the cracks. Without him, the Vatican would still have spiritual depth, but it would lose its ability to move wisely on the world stage. He doesn't chase headlines, he draws lines, and when he speaks, even in silence, people listen. Then there's Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, a man who captures hearts as easily as he delivers homilies. If Proin is the Vatican's mind, Tagle is its soul. Born in the Philippines and educated in Rome, he represents a church that is no longer centered in Europe, but one that is truly global. His background is a blend of deep humility and strong intellect, allowing him to move comfortably between academic discussions and grassroots missionary work. As pro-prefect of the Dicastery for Evangelization, Tagle is tasked with spreading the gospel to the world's forgotten corners. But under Pope Leo, many believe his role could grow into something more prophetic. During the Pope's inauguration, it was Tagle who placed the fisherman's ring on Leo's finger, a gesture rich in meaning. It wasn't just about ceremony, it was a public expression of trust, a sign that the heart of the Pope's mission might very well beat in time with Tagle's. What makes him so beloved isn't just his eloquence. It's his humanity. He cries during his sermons. He speaks of the poor not as numbers, but as neighbors. He turns global suffering into something personal, something you feel. In places where the church is just beginning to find its voice, Tagle speaks with compassion, clarity, and strength. Pope Leo may guide the ship, but in many ways, Tagle is the heartbeat that keeps it alive. In today's world, the Catholic Church has no armies and no borders. But through Archbishop Paul Gallagher, it has something just as powerful, a voice that reaches into every room where decisions of peace or conflict are made. As the Vatican's top diplomat, Gallagher serves as the Church's chief bridge builder. His job is anything but easy: to bring timeless moral values into fast-moving, often chaotic global discussions. Gallagher doesn't engage in sound bites or social media campaigns. Instead, he crafts his words with care, choosing language so precise that entire governments pay attention. Under Pope Leo XIV, his role is even more important. In an age torn apart by division, war, and deep skepticism toward religion, Gallagher walks in not to dominate conversations, but to ground them in truth. His recent meetings with world leaders, including us officials, show that the Vatican under Pope Leo is ready to be part of the global conversation, not only as a spiritual voice, but as a serious diplomatic partner. Gallagher's presence ensures that when the Church speaks, it's heard not just as a religious authority, but as a voice of reason and conscience in places where such voices are often missing. While diplomacy shapes the Church's role abroad, someone else is keeping things running smoothly within the Vatican walls: Sister Raffaella Petrini. She doesn't wear a red hat or sit among cardinals, but she holds one of the most influential roles in the Vatican's daily operations. As Secretary General of the Vatican City's government, she's responsible for everything from budgets and legal systems to buildings and human resources. And she handles it all with the calm precision of a seasoned leader. Originally appointed under Pope Francis, many expected her term would quietly end with the new papacy. But Pope Leo had other plans. Not only did he keep her in place, he made it clear. In this Vatican, competence matters more than color or title. Sister Petroni has become a trusted figure behind the scenes, managing the internal structure of the Vatican with a balance of efficiency and spiritual focus. Under her guidance, the city-state runs more like a monastery with the organization of a modern government. The Pope may lead the global church, but Sister Petroni makes sure the House of Peter doesn't fall apart. Then there's Cardinal Michael Czerny, someone who doesn't just speak about Catholic social teaching, he lives it. A Jesuit, a theologian, and a passionate advocate for the poor, Czerny heads the Vatican's Office for Integral Human Development. That may sound abstract, but his work touches the very heart of the Church's mission, helping refugees, promoting labor justice, protecting creation, and confronting racism. He's known not for staying behind a desk, but for stepping into the real struggles of people's lives. He's walked alongside migrants, visited disaster zones, and slept in the same harsh conditions as those he serves. Though past the typical age of retirement, Pope Leo has kept him in place. And with good reason. Czerny brings a credibility that can't be faked. He doesn't speak as a politician or academic, but as someone who has sat with the forgotten and carried their pain into the heart of the Church. His presence ensures that compassion isn't just preached, it's practiced. Under Pope Leo's leadership, Czerny's voice will continue to challenge the comfortable and remind us all of the people and truths we'd rather not face. As the Church begins to wrestle with more modern ethical dilemmas, one of the most important figures is Archbishop Vincenzo Paglia. He leads the Pontifical Academy for Life, which deals with some of the most complex and emerging moral issues of our time: artificial intelligence, genetic editing, and transhumanism, to name just a few. These are areas the Church has never had to face before, yet Paglia has stepped in with clarity and courage. What makes him stand out is his ability to stay rooted in Church teaching, while also being open to dialogue. He's not afraid to sit down with thinkers and scientists who disagree with the Church. He believes real understanding begins with conversation, not condemnation. Though now in his 80s, his voice still carries weight. His eventual successor will mark a shift, but for now, Paglia remains a thoughtful guide in an increasingly uncertain age. His message is simple but profound. Being part of an ancient church doesn't mean being out of touch. It means having the wisdom to ask the right questions, even when the world is racing ahead. Finally, there's Cardinal Dominique Mamberti, the quiet legal mind at the center of it all. While he may not be a household name, his influence is significant. He once led the Vatican's highest court, and today serves as the Cardinal Protodeacon, the one who placed the sacred vestments on Pope Leo at the start of his pontificate. But his real strength lies in how he interprets church law carefully, consistently, and with a long view. In a church that's constantly balancing reform with tradition, Mamberti offers stability. He speaks rarely, but when he does, canon lawyers and bishops alike pay attention. His role is not just to uphold the rules, but to make sure the Church's legal structure continues to serve the truth, rather than the other way around. In a time of ongoing change, he reminds the Church that law, when rooted in mercy and wisdom, becomes a path, not a barrier to grace. As the Church continues to explore new ideas around reform, whether in liturgy, leadership, or accountability, Cardinal Dominique Mamberti plays a quiet but crucial role. He's not the one introducing bold changes or stirring debate. Instead, he ensures that change remains grounded, not confusing. His deep understanding of canon law, liturgical norms, and centuries of church tradition gives the Vatican something essential: structure. In many ways, Mamberti acts like a backbone. Without figures like him, even the most well-intentioned reforms risk becoming disorganized or misunderstood. He may not be the voice of renewal, but he is the foundation that keeps it steady. His presence in Pope Leo XIV's inner circle is more than symbolic, it's strategic. As the Church takes steps forward, it is Mamberty who ensures those steps land on solid ground. While his name might not appear in headlines or viral posts, his impact is lasting. It's the kind of influence that unfolds quietly over time, shaping the decisions that determine whether a papacy builds something lasting or something that eventually fades. And in a time when so many voices clamor for immediate change, Mamberty offers something rare: patience, clarity, and consistency. Because a papacy is never the work of one man. It's more like a symphony. Some voices are strong and public preachers, diplomats, prophets. Others play softer notes through guidance, counsel, and discipline. But every voice matters. Every instrument has its place. Pope Leo XIV may be the one leading the Church forward, but he's not walking alone. Around him is a trusted group of individuals, deep thinkers, careful managers, courageous pastors who help shape the path he walks. Together, they form the heart of this new papacy's direction. In silence and discernment, in mission and mercy, in diplomacy and structure. Their work isn't flashy, and it's not always visible. But it's the kind of leadership that runs deep, anchoring the Church through uncertainty, grounding her in truth, and keeping her mission alive in a rapidly changing world. If the Church is to move forward with clarity and conviction, it will be because of the steady hands and thoughtful minds of people like these. So the next time you see the Pope in white, remember what lies behind him. Layers of prayer, long hours of discernment, complex decisions, and faithful people working quietly to support the mission of Christ. Every papacy is a chapter in the Church's long story. But no chapter is written alone. Behind every great pope is a team faithful, wise, and committed to shaping the future of Catholic life. And with this team around Pope Leo XIV, the Church has every reason to hope that its next chapter will be one of strength, unity, and grace. As Pope Leo XIV steps into the early days of his leadership, he inherits more than the white garments of his office. He takes up a responsibility that reaches far beyond the Vatican walls. The modern papacy is not just about doctrine and ceremony, it's about guiding a global church through a time of great uncertainty. And to do that, he relies on more than personal wisdom. He leans on those around him: advisors, pastors, theologians, diplomats, and workers, each bringing their own gifts to the mission. These 7 figures are not celebrities. Most of them go unrecognized in public. But they shape what matters. They shape how the Church moves, how it responds to crisis, how it walks into the future. Some of them work in silence. Others speak boldly. But all of them share one essential trait: they are grounded in faith, and they carry the weight of their work with humility. In an age when leadership is often measured in spotlight moments or social media reach, the Vatican offers a different image. Leadership through prayer, through endurance, through integrity. It is not the loudest voices that matter most, it is the most faithful ones. Cardinal Proin, with his careful diplomacy, reminds the Church that trust is built over time, not tweets. Cardinal Tagle, with his tender heart and missionary energy, shows how evangelization begins with compassion. Archbishop Gallagher carries the Church's message into tense political spaces without losing its soul. Sister Raffaella Petrini proves that authority can be both efficient and humble. Cardinal Czerny reminds us that the gospel must always touch the poor. Archbishop Paglia speaks into the whirlwind of scientific and moral uncertainty with calm and clarity. And Cardinal Mamberty keeps the ground steady beneath it all, reminding the Church that even renewal must be rooted in wisdom. Each of them adds something unique, but none of them works alone. Together, they form a web of strength around Pope Leo, and what they represent goes even deeper. They show what kind of church this can become: a church not stuck in the past, but anchored in it. A church that can face modern challenges without losing sight of eternal truths. A church that listens before it speaks. A church that values quiet virtue over loud ambition. This is especially important now. The Church faces challenges not only from outside, but from within: growing skepticism, fatigue, division, and confusion. People are asking hard questions. What does the Church stand for? Can it still lead with moral clarity? Can it be trusted to walk with the wounded, the poor, the forgotten? And the answer won't come through policies alone. It will come through witness. through the daily lives of those who serve, pray, suffer, and lead with love. Through moments that don't go viral, but change hearts. Through the kind of leadership that is both deeply spiritual and courageously practical. That's what Pope Leo seems to understand. His early choices, his liturgical symbolism, his quiet appointments, they all suggest a leader who is more interested in depth than speed, in substance over show. He doesn't just want to react to the world, he wants to respond with truth, with mercy, and with conviction. And the team surrounding him is carefully built for that task. In the years ahead, many things will be written about this papacy. There will be expectations, criticisms, praise, and perhaps controversy. But before any of that unfolds, we've been given a glimpse of a church that can still surprise us with its grace. A church that does not simply survive change, but walks through it with wisdom. A church that remembers who she is by remembering who walks with her. These 7 individuals, their loyalty, their vision, their sacrifices are a quiet echo of something greater. The communion of the church itself. A living body made up of many roles, many voices, but one purpose. To proclaim Christ. To live his message. To shepherd his people. And so as Pope Leo XIV begins this new chapter in the story of the church, he does not stand alone. He stands shoulder to shoulder with faithful servants. Together, they are not just managing an institution. They are trying to lead souls to heaven. That's the real mission. That's the real weight of the papacy. And perhaps in their example, we too can find a way forward. A reminder that faith is not just about the headlines. It's about the hands that serve behind the scenes. It's about the prayers offered in silence. The hard conversations handled with grace. The truth spoken gently but firmly. And the courage to keep building, even when the world tries to tear down. Because at the heart of the church is not bureaucracy or politics. At the heart of the church is Christ. And those who lead her best are those who never forget that. Every papacy leaves a mark, not only in documents and speeches, but in the people chosen to walk beside the Pope. These 7 figures, carefully placed around Pope Leo XIV, form more than just an advisory team. They are a spiritual network, a compass of discernment. They represent different faces of the church: diplomats and pastors, organizers and theologians, reformers and guardians of tradition. Together, they don't just serve a leader. They carry the soul of a church learning to breathe again in a complicated world. Their roles vary, but they share something deeper than job titles. They have been entrusted with something sacred. The direction of the church at a time when both clarity and compassion are in short supply. The modern age is loud, fast, and often unkind to institutions rooted in the eternal. But these individuals, through quiet conviction, offer a reminder that not everything sacred must be shouted. Sometimes it must simply be lived. Take Cardinal Proin. He isn't a name splashed across news headlines. He doesn't seek public attention. Yet every day, his hands steady the church's global engagement. He is the kind of leader who would rather lose credit than lose clarity. And in a church so often pulled between political pressures and spiritual obligations, that kind of quiet strength is rare and deeply needed. Cardinal Tagle brings another kind of power. His gift is not in behind-the-scenes strategy, but in something far more visible and vulnerable. He is not afraid to show emotion in the pulpit. He weeps when the gospel demands it. He smiles when the church celebrates. He listens when others talk. And in doing so, he teaches that being strong doesn't mean being unfeeling. It means carrying the world's wounds while still believing in its healing. As the church's voice grows softer in some parts of the world, Tagle's voice rises not in volume, but in depth. And then there's Archbishop Gallagher, the bridge between the Vatican and the rest of the world. In times of peace, he negotiates understanding. In times of war, he speaks for the voiceless. He doesn't wield power with threats. He walks into rooms where trust is scarce and reminds people of conscience. In a world driven by speed and spin, he slows things down to say something true. In doing so, he shows that the Vatican's strength isn't in force, but in the moral clarity of its message. Sister Raffaella Petrini reminds the world that leadership doesn't always come with a red hat. It can come in the quiet discipline of a woman who keeps the Vatican's daily life running with precision and grace. Her role may seem administrative, but in the Church, every small task, when done with love, becomes an act of service. She doesn't just manage the Vatican, she keeps it whole. A church without visible cracks often stands on the shoulders of those who quietly reinforce its foundation. Cardinal Czerny, meanwhile, reminds the Church that it must never lose sight of the poor. He doesn't serve them from afar, he serves them from within. He has sat with migrants, walked through refugee camps, and stood in places many leaders avoid. He doesn't bring distant solutions, he brings presence. He is not the Church's voice to the poor, he is the poor's voice to the Church. And in a time when comfort can dull compassion, his presence is a necessary disruption. Archbishop Vincenzo Paglia lives at the intersection of faith and the future. Where others see science as a threat to theology, he sees a conversation waiting to happen. He doesn't flinch when the Church is asked about AI, genetics, or consciousness. He steps into those questions with rooted courage, grounded in tradition but unafraid to explore. He knows that the Church can't hide from modernity, but it can shape it. And in a world where technology outpaces ethics, Paglia asks the question the world forgets to. Just because we can, should we? Then there is Cardinal Mamberti, who doesn't draw attention to himself, but shapes how the Church interprets what she believes. His work is often silent, almost invisible. But it is vital. When reform is needed, he ensures it doesn't drift into confusion. When tradition is upheld, he ensures it remains alive, not rigid. In a Church caught between speed and sacredness, Mamberti is the steadying hand that reminds everyone. Progress is good, but it must be built on rock, not sand. Together, these seven don't simply advise a pope. They form a living image of the Church herself, diverse, complex, grounded in faith, and open to the world without losing the heart of the gospel. They are proof that leadership in the Church is not just about vision, it is about virtue. It is about knowing when to speak and when to listen, when to lead and when to pray. Pope Leo XIV may be the voice of this new papacy, but these individuals are its breath. Without them, the Church would speak but not sing, move but not endure. They are what gives this new season of Catholic leadership its spiritual depth and moral direction. And their presence matters more now than ever, because we are living in an age that questions everything. People are skeptical of institutions. Many are wounded by the Church's past. Others feel left behind by its present. Young people are searching, not for perfection, but for authenticity. Families are struggling to find meaning. The world is more connected and more divided than ever before. And the role of the Church in this moment isn't just to stand firm. It is to walk humbly, to lead without arrogance, to serve with a love that listens before it teaches. That's why this team matters. Because they model something rare. They show that holiness is not about headlines, it's about faithfulness. That influence isn't always loud, it's often quiet. That real power in the Church doesn't come from control, it comes from Christ. This is the story behind Pope Leo's early decisions. This is the quiet architecture of a new chapter in the Church's life. Not a revolution, not a retreat, but a renewal rooted in relationships, prayer, and courage. And in that sense, this isn't just a story about Vatican insiders. It's a story about us. Because the Church isn't only shaped in Rome. It's shaped in every heart that believes, every voice that prays, every act of mercy, every hour of service, every time someone chooses love over fear, truth over popularity, Christ over comfort. The Church is built not by the powerful alone, but by the faithful everywhere. So as this new papacy unfolds, we are all invited to take part. To follow, to pray, to lead in our own corners of the world. Whether you're a teacher, a parent, a student, a priest, or someone still searching, you matter. Your faith matters. Your hope matters. You may never step into the halls of the Vatican, but the Church lives wherever you bring light into darkness. And that's the message behind all of this. That behind the Pope in white, there is a team. And behind that team, there is a people. And within that people, there is a spirit still moving, still calling, still building the Church, not just for today, but for eternity. Because the story of the Church isn't finished. It's still being written. And you are a part of it. Subscribe for more insights into the future of the Church under Pope Leo XIV, or anything similar.